Welcome to Inside Scoop Live, the podcast where indie authors get personal, sharing insights about their books, their writing journeys, and their passions. I'm your host, Sherry Hoyt, and I invite you to join me for engaging conversations with both debut indie authors and seasoned veterans. Whether you're looking for your next great read or a bit of inspiration, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Well, hi, everyone. Raul Brown joins us today to talk about his new children's book, JR versus Stinky Dumping Ground. It centers on a determined young boy who calls himself the future ruler of the world as he takes on environmental threats, one neighborhood crisis at a time. Before we get started, here's the inside scoop on the author. R. Ellis Brown grew up surrounded by stories, the kind his uncles told with flair and detail, the kind that stick with you. Now he tells his own stories. A debut novelist and children's book author, Brown writes across genres with a consistent thread. Characters navigating big stakes, real-world issues, and the question of who the heroes really are. By day, Brown works as a business advisor at the Pace University Small Business Development Center, where he has spent 2 decades helping entrepreneurs turn ideas into reality, not unlike what he does on the page. You can learn more about the author and his work at rellisbrown.com. Well, hi, Raul. Welcome to Inside Scoop Live.
Thanks for having me, Sherry.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to learning about your book, JR versus Stinky Dumping Ground. Tell us a little bit about the story, what's it about, and what your inspiration behind the story was.
Well, I've been writing for a while, but I've never written books before. I started off writing scripts because they sort of fit with my training as an accountant and my day job. It's very formatted, step by step. And I never thought I could actually complete a book because I wondered, how do you juggle all these characters in a book? But as is usual, I got ahead of myself and decided I would actually try a book. Had written 2 books, and in one of the books, there is a child character. The character just came at me, and I said, wow, I should write a children's book. What should I write about? Okay, maybe let's do something environmental so that it could really be a positive. And so that was the start of the book, a children's book, environmentally focused. And then step by step, I came to a JR versus Stinky Dumping Ground.
I love it. I love that title too. It's so fun. And it seems like it would really draw a kid's attention. And JR, I love his character, his voice. He's so funny. He's got this like dry wit, dry sense of humor. I love the way he calls everyone simpletons, but and his attitude, he genuinely believes that he's going to rule the world by the time he's 20. Where did that character come from? Where did his voice come from?
Well, I try not to put myself into the characters of anything I write. I try to write stuff that's outside of me. But when I was trying to get the main character out together, I sort of thought back to what age range, and it's a 12-year-old. And then I thought, well, what happened to me when I was 12? And it turns out that my little sister did pass away when I was 12 years old from a brain tumor.
Mm.
So I thought, well, okay, how could I take that and fit it into a book about the environment? But I didn't want it to be about me. But I have been told often, Jerry, that I have a very dry wit. Uh, so some of me may have seeped into the book. I'm the youngest in my family. I had that loss when I was 12 years old. So I think too much of me seeped into the character. So it was accidental, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's okay though, because it adds that level of authenticity, I mean, you know who you are, and so you could translate that into your character's voice. I actually think that works well. Yeah. Now tell us about a stinky dump. It's a problem in the neighborhood long before JR starts investigating it. What's the real life story behind the stinky dump?
Well, pretty much every community has some type of environmental issue. And, we become accustomed to things and we just let it go. And so I'm sure there are dumps in many neighborhoods that the people in the community just don't have time to think about. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just gets a pass. So there was this dump in the neighborhood, and it's the folks are busy, they have lives to live, and so it doesn't have an immediate impact on them. So they just let it be. But not JR, he's that type of character who focuses in on things, and he wants to fix the world. So yeah, so by the time he's 20 years old, he isn't going to be ruling the world. In reality, he wants to fix the world. And one of the things he plans to fix now is Stinky Dump.
Yeah. I like the way he starts, though. Let's start, one neighborhood at a time, right? Who knows? Maybe he will be running the world soon, right? Now, you mentioned your sister earlier and bringing yourself into your character. And behind this story, this activism plot, this environmental mystery, there is really a story about JR who can't cry at his little sister's funeral. What did you want to add with the grief element of the story?
Well, that came just because that's what happened to me when I was 12 years old. So I thought, okay, let me put that into the book. How would a
Hmm.
12-year-old react to that? Or maybe in the case of JR, just not react to it because, as mentioned by someone who read the book earlier, we all grieve differently. And so this is how JR grieves. He grieves by fixing something in his community.
Yeah.
That's his grieving process. And yeah, it's an individual thing, our grieving processes. And so that's just how we go about dealing with the situations that we're in.
Okay. Yeah, he kind of has to work through his grief. I get that. So now JR is one of many siblings. Tell us a little bit about his family.
Yeah, so he has an older brother and an older sister. And, it's a typical family relationship. Now, they fight among themselves. JR loves annoying his older brothers and sisters because being the youngest in the family, he can get away with a lot of stuff. So he spends a lot of time doing that. But there's still a loving relationship because, he says of his sister, she's of no use unless she's making brownies. And she shares the brownies out very generously. And his big brother is of no use unless he's playing sports with him. Otherwise, they're useless. So that's just the family dynamic. But they obviously love each other because they support each other. JR skips school and goes into Manhattan, and he spends some of his money to buy souvenirs for his older brother and sister.
Hmm.
And he's telling his friends, "Yeah, I'm so nice to them. I'm buying this stuff for them, even though they're useless." So that's the relationship. When JR finds the person, the worker at the dumping ground who punched him, he says, "That's the guy." His brother and his sister, they're the ones at the front of the pack trying to get the guy. So I'd like to think it's like a normal sibling relationship.
Absolutely. Nobody can pick on my little brother but me, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, his siblings also go from kind of treating him like he's made out of glass when he's grieving, and then they go right back to teasing him and, kind of shutting him out by the end of the story. What were you going for there with
Just,
their dynamic?
just things going back to normal. The family is sort of, they lost their baby, the baby in the family. So
Yeah.
maybe they're looking for another baby. So, oh, JR, you're up next. When
Mm.
you're the baby of the family, we're going to treat you like the baby of the family, which JR does not like. And then after the grieving processes have reached a certain stage, they just go back to their normal lives. I guess his sister will continue calling him Germ while still making brownies for him. And his brother will selectively decide when he can hang out with the older brother. So it's just back to normal. But they wanted to make him the baby. They just thought they needed another baby, so he was up next.
Right. Now you mentioned Germ. That is his sister's nickname for him. What is that all about?
That's just her nickname for him.
Oh, okay.
that's that's what she calls him because in order to aggravate her, he will come and like knock on her door and just keep knocking until she yells and screams. So so that's just her nickname for him.
Just sibling stuff. Yeah. Great. I want to talk a little bit more about the environmental issue but first tell us about the neighbor that is such a grounding force for JR, Auntie Mabel. She seems to always show up at just the right moments throughout the book.
Yeah, I wanted to show that a supportive community can make a lot of difference in a kid's life. And this is a supportive community, this neighborhood in Brooklyn. I was actually looking for like a Spike Lee vibe, that
Mm.
the community is there for you. And so she's sort of representative of the community. The neighbors, they talk to each other, they argue with each other, but they're always there for each other. And so that's representative of Auntie Mabel. And, they invest in each other. It's a very welcoming community. For example, Malcolm, his big brother's friend, is sort of having a very hard luck life, foster homes, never knew his parents. And they all support him, just like instinctively, he's part of the neighbor. And they There's a funny part where Malcolm wants, he's very good at fixing things. So, he fixes things for the neighbors. And he wanted to go to like an auto school. So the application process asked him to provide a recommendation. And he went and got recommendations from pretty much everyone in the neighborhood,
Oh,
just
wow.
got recommendations from Auntie Mabel, from all the parents, everyone. He got a bunch of recommendations. And so JR asked him, well, Malcolm, that's a lot of recommendations. Why did did you need all those recommendations? And Malcolm replies, I barely needed one recommendation, but I just wanted to feel the love, to get all these people saying nice things about me. So it was just to feel the love. And so that's the difference that a supportive community can make.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I love how in the book you talk about the environmental issue around hazardous waste, especially because you don't make it feel like a lecture for children. How did you pull that off, and what do you want kids to walk away thinking about after they read this book?
I'm glad that I didn't come across as being preachy, because normally being like a JL like character, I tend to like think I'm the only one who has the answers, and so I normally would tend to preach a lot. So I'm glad it didn't come off as being preachy. I want to tell the kids, yeah, you can make a difference. You have to build the environment you want. Let the parents know that to fix things, and make them fix it, because you have that power to do that. Even though you think they may not be listening to you, you're having an impact, which I think is what a lot of parents think, that my kids are not listening to me, but everything you say, they're listening. It's impacting them. They're sort of taking it in.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's up to the kid to make a difference. Also, there's a lot of freedom that are granted to these kids in all the episodes of JR that I hope to do. The kids have a lot of freedom. They can get out and do things. They're not sitting behind the screen all the time and being helicoptered around the place.
Hmm.
So So I wanted kids to have an adventure, to get out, and you can't have much of an adventure behind the screen. So I wanted to get the kids out into the world.
Right. Get out there, get to know your community, and you give them that voice because sometimes it feels like we don't have a voice or a say in things, but we do. We just have to get out there and do something. So that's a great message. I love that. Now, there's a climax at a community street party, and there's news cameras, but nothing goes the way JR had planned. But it works out better than he imagined. Can you walk us through that scene and what your intentions were for that bit of the story?
The way I come up with scenes, I guess most writers or creative people do, you just take it to a ridiculous way. Just keep going with it. It seems ridiculous, and sometimes it works out. And so I wanted to have this climactic scene, and I didn't actually know how it would work out until I was actually writing the first draft. I
Hmm.
may have just put in the outline, climactic scene, and then this came out because I wanted that Spike Lee vibe, having the community out and about. So that's where it started, and then it just built on itself. Okay, yeah, so things work out. And then I thought, okay, maybe this is the chance for JR to actually get through this part of his grief and have a good cry when he sees that Stinky Dump is being destroyed.
Mm. Okay. Wow. Yeah.
But you mentioned something about the perfect victory, because I don't know if it's a spoiler, but yeah, his friend says, it was not a perfect victory, but you did get something done. And the reason I did not want a perfect victory, because that's not the way life works. You never hit home runs all the time. From when I was putting the book together, it seemed like many, I don't know if it's true, if there's studies done on it, but anecdotally, it seems that books with female characters, girl characters, they tend to be more nuanced, whereas I was told that books with like boy characters, you have that perfect victory. They conquer the monster, or they whatever needs to be done, it gets done. But the world is seldom like that. So you're not gonna get many perfect victories,
Yeah.
but you take the victories that you get. I did not want a perfect victory.
Okay. Okay. And I like that because it's more realistic. And you can have crazy, wild fiction and still be realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the JR books, so it sounds like there's more to come. What can you tell us about what's next for you? Like, is this going to be a series? What are your plans?
Yeah, I plan to have JR in different situations. But the JR is not going to be the same JR in Brooklyn. I plan to have JR in many different situations, and it's going to be the name JR, but it's just going to be outside New York City, maybe even a different ethnicity, with the initials JR. So it's called JR, and but it may be like Juan Rodriguez, who's called HR or JR or something of that. But in different situations, dealing with the environment.
Okay. Okay. That's great. So are you working on additional books now? Do you have some ready to go, or where in that process are you?
I have three actually that I have done early drafts of them, an additional three are in different situations, episodes 2, 3, and 4. So I have to start going through the editing process, which seriously, I do find that process enjoyable. The whole publishing process, it's been more enjoyable than I thought. I thought it would be scary. Because of the publishing community, I think they're so welcoming. Really been an enjoyable process. I'm so glad I did this.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, it's not easy getting a book out there. Who did you work through? Your publisher?
Well, I worked with Chisholm at the publishing pad. It's a self-published book, so I did most of the steps. And then when I saw that there were some things I could not do, like the book cover, that was done by Peter Ogundipe. And I found Chisholm at Upwork, and Chisholm is at the publishingpad.com. And she helped me through the formatting process and the editing process, which was more extensive than I realized. I thought I was a much better writer. So yeah, some at the publishing pad helped a lot. I also have an Emily Carter who is helping me with some marketing. But early on, what I really enjoyed was having someone like read the book and come back to me with like blunt feedback, like this doesn't work, or I don't like this. I really enjoy getting blunt feedback, especially if it's productive, because I asked you like why you didn't like this, okay.
Right.
But that's the problem I get with friends and family asking them to review your book, your early drafts, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They say, "Oh, he's a nice guy. I don't want to hurt his feelings. I know he likes it." So let me say nice things about it, and you keep telling them, "No, no. If you don't like something, you have to tell me."
Yeah, that's how you improve your writing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So now, do you have a website where listeners or readers can learn more about you and your work?
I set up my website. It's rellisbrown.com, RELLISBROWN.com. And I'm trying to improve it also. But again, I'd like the focus to be on JR rather than on me. I don't feel like I want to be the front face of the book. I'd rather people think of JR or the book or the characters. That's
Right.
why originally I did not want to do a podcast interview. I like why doesn't Sherry like make up a JR and then interview JR?
I could have done that.
Oh, that's an idea.
Maybe next book.
Oh yeah. Oh, now you tell me.
Yeah. I didn't think about that, but that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
So remember me, and the next book we can do an interview with your character.
the JR. Okay. Oh, that's gonna be something.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Okay. I love that. So, well, Raul, did you have anything else you wanted to add today, or?
Yeah, I think like pretty much anyone could have pulled off a book like this because you don't have to have lived in a community in order to know the community, because all communities are just a click away. So you can learn about other communities and sort of get a vibe. It's always helpful to actually be there in person. You can still get a good feel about any community by just clicking.
Absolutely. Like as you mentioned in the beginning of the interview, all communities have these problems. It's not just related to certain cities or certain environments. Everyone has these same issues.
And then you can personalize it by, you bring your own life experience to whatever situation. So even though you're clicking and you're not there physically, you somehow manage to bring your own life experiences into that situation.
Right, right. I guess to close us off, can you tell us about maybe some of the feedback you've had from readers? You mentioned getting feedback early on. And when the book was released, what has your overall kind of feedback been?
Oh, it's been very positive. Everyone seems to like it. Well, of my friends, of course, that I told about it, yeah, they all they all liked it. But yeah, I was so happy when Chisholm told me about Reader's View. I didn't know about it.
Hmm.
And then she said, yeah, you got to be here. We have to send this to those guys at Reader's View. And it sort of like felt like I'd achieved something when someone totally independent who knows what they're doing says like, this is good, this is worthwhile, because I can't believe how happy I feel when someone just reads my words. Like, I'm like, wow, this person is taking the time to read what I wrote. On the back cover, I have a friend living in upstate New York, and her tenants has a grandchild named, that's Lucy, that you will see on the back cover. And my friend said, well, yeah, I'll read the book, but my tenant's grandchild, she's really remarkable. I'm going to give her a copy. Let's give her a copy. Let's see what she says. And she actually read it and then came back to me, because sometimes you ask your friends to read and they say, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then they actually don't read it or don't
Yeah.
bother. But she came back with some really on the point remarks. And I was like, wow, okay. I just felt so blessed that she took the time to read what I wrote. I can't tell you how pleasant it feels that someone just took the time out of their lives to read something that I wrote. It's a really good feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's wonderful validation. Well, Raul, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I appreciate you talking a little bit about your book, and it was a pleasure getting to know you but mostly JR.
Yeah, and I can't say enough about the reading community and how supportive it is. You guys, and the people who, there are some people in this world. They just read anything that you put in front of them, whether it be a book or a
Hmm.
menu or whatever. They just love to read, and I'm beginning to really appreciate them. And now that I'm here, and I really understand, okay, that this is what drives them, just reading and putting themselves in another world. You guys out there, I appreciate you. All the readers out there, I do appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much for joining me today for my conversation with Raul Brown, author of JR versus Stinky Dumping Ground. You can learn more about the author and his work at rellisbrown.com. And be sure to check out our other interviews on InsideScoopLive.com.